Hey guys, thanking you for the support you offer by acquiring more and more works derivatives from the Grimoire Goétia collection, as well as from the Grimorium Verum Carpe Nicrum collection. In this video I will also do the English version on another channel, so even if at the beginning of this video it's information you already know, understand that I say it for historical record and for foreigners who don't live here in Brazil. So this video will initially be to protest that we maintain our freedom in this reality of ours, and I ask for your help in this, in which today we are in a country in transition from the former Federative Republic of Brazil to the Empire of Zandaquistan. To then I make you a very interesting proposal, here in the
Hora da Magia do Caos. Oi, foi, ufa.
As the legal empire of our country tore up our Magna Carta constituent, the installation of this empire has been sweeping away the ideal of the Republic and declares in itself the imminent loss of our equality in our duties and rights, such as our free expression, also the expression of the people who oppose my arguments. Appealing to parliamentarians to change the course of this abyss is as useless as believing that even presidents of the Senate or federal chamber had any interest in that. These people are only concerned with Brazilians during their practice in the old litany of lies in the campaign, where in this short term any lie is worth it. As a consequence, sooner or later our publications of books and e-books will stop in this censorship of ignorance reimplanted in our country. Also some people will evaluate my words as exacerbated alarmism, or as fake news. However, here I predict a reality not yet implemented, and here I foresee conditions yet to avoid this disgrace, while the same procedure of the Inquisition is repeated by the people who held the power at the time and silenced opponents by force, rather than arguments. Of course, we can still publish and practice our activities in the segment of magic, or esotericism and other occult activities, but sooner or later this will be stopped under arguments that are against the big party, or as justifications for religions to recover the legal and tax benefits they had before, for this capital to sustain the big party. Because our country has a group that uses censorship to curb the free expression of arguments in opposition to the arguments of criminals. This group that will take over Brazil is made up of the same people who used to lie when they fought for Bolivarian pseudo-democracy, persisting for years trying to implant it in Brazil. This is certainly not exclusive to Brazilians, because throughout our universe there are beings who want to take advantage on every chance, and, while they do not realize how much it costs to circumvent laws, rules and principles of their peoples with the dribbling of their crimes, even if they become hidden in the darkness of the underworld, they put a brake on the evolution and freedom of the other beings with whom they live. This is a repetition of the old lying structure practiced for example by the extreme Nazism cartel. You can lie many times to one person, or you can lie once to many people. However, you cannot lie to everyone all the time. Unfortunately, in addition to this, the lie installed decades ago in Brazil that we would have a quality education has always been a false laceration implanting enslavement by teaching, with distorted narratives, and that teach us to read titles and forget to read the news, the texts, just as those professional teachers and their superiors, or even parliamentarians with decadent knowledge are incapable of counter-arguing issues in opposition to the young students themselves. This profile of the incapable among others implants education and legislation in our country in the same way. Obey it or shut up. But let me break down the parts of this video in 18 topics. 1. Historical heritage as our own history already declares the seed of unconstitutionality involving the jurisprudent empire of illegality. Since 1985, when Tancredo Neves was indirectly elected, he was unable to assume the presidency due to illness. Contrary to what the Constitution required, should we hold the election and make another direct elections in 90 days, as the direct amendment had already passed. Unconstitutionally, his vice president, José Sarney, took over in the worst years of the Brazilian economy, with record inflation in the 1980s. As a mere detail, the previous president, General José Figueiredo, did not hand over the presidential sash to José Sarney. To change in course we cannot forget. Luckily, a former judge and current senator-elect, rebel to the communist cause of the big party, in that time within the judiciary, observed what it was and was crimes that finances the ideal of pseudo-democracy of the Bolivarians. He carried out an entire investigation that other judges of higher instances confirmed and condemned the people who participated in these crimes, against Brazil, not against just one state or one municipality. 3. Slow installation of the Imperium model, realizing that the law was taking power in our country with this initiative above. In our holy innocence, the continuous tearing of our Magna Carta was initiated since the Queen of Cassava was condemned to impeachment for her fiscal peddling. When an emperor in a monocratic law created by the same individual in the same event allowed her to run even though she was contested in the votes later, which in the Brazilian constitution does not give this right nor to the emperor this function to make that in Article 52. She did so at the very event in which the Queen was judged in a 2015 trial. 4. Brazilians show our face. Although the Brazilian people despise this implantation in vogue of the Empire of Zandaquistan, no longer re-electing the said whose queen. In this legal war in 2018, Brazilians actually voted for the candidate outside the Bolivarian scheme, and our country provisionally came out of the abyss that was falling until 2018 to stand up until 2022. Due to its team of professional ministers of Bolsonaro government in their excellence, to give them the minimum qualification, according to the very good results shown by our economy. 5. Legal management. This forced the cunning emperors in 2019 to create the famous End of the World Survey, as named by one of the emperors at the time, named with the initials, M.A. In it, the victim who initiated the action, without a public prosecutor, appointed a reporter without drawing lots, and the prosecutor became a delegate, prosecutor, judge and victim at the same time, in the case. In it the free expression of thought, freedom of opinion were at the mercy of will, his will. Censorship was already instituted at the time, while during the pandemic these emperors trampled on the stony rights of the constitution such as locomotion, assembly, work and even worship. They also invaded other powers, when the power of parliamentarians in the National Congress was trampled, even with the arrest of a parliamentarian, who, according to the constitution, the parliamentarians had inviolability for the declaration of any words. Executive power has also been violated when the President of the Republic was prohibited from appointing a subordinate and was obliged to reveal a secret meeting behind closed doors in a ministry, which could contain confidential matters. In the shadows of the law, the federally convicted Pixeleco CPX was also released from jail. Initially judged by the mentioned before former judge and currently elected senator, if emperors do not prevent him from being a senator in the future. As much as the empire punishes those who tell the truth, the argument of the emperors in their legal maneuver inventing a territoriality to annul processes in which the defendant Pixeleco CPX was already serving a sentence of petrolau. The emperors invented that Pixeleco CPX as his group of criminals who caused crimes to the nation should be investigated and judged in another location. Even if it until today this keeps the convict as a convict. 6. Missing something. Aware that this legal deception only took the criminal out of the cage, they saw that for implanting imperialism in Brazil, until then, it was not enough. When the persistent attempt by parliamentarians to install printed proof of votes, to enable auditing and bring some suitability to old electronic voting machines, of a model prior to 2020, this measure was almost accepted in 2021. When panic in the empire under construction forced one of the emperors from Zandaquistan personally went to coerce parliamentarians not to allow the auditing of the votes and to continue to cheat the electoral law, and that emperor went to press the parliamentarians for them to keep the tentacles of the fake Bolivarian pseudo-democracy to be kept in those electronic boxes without printing of votes for later auditing. 7. God is not a programmer. In our reasonable holy confidence that the Brazilians would maintain in our growing prosperity, we actually believed that the absolute majority of votes would maintain the same prosperity as professionals since 2018. Thus, we tolerated the whipping of the law if the convicted Pixeleco CPX, even free from bars, stayed away from elections, as the clean record law prevents convicts from running for public office. But while we, Brazilians in fact, believed that we were voting for the continuity of our prosperity, we were deceived when emperors unconstitutionally allowed the criminals still convicted to run for the highest executive position, the presidency, in corruption by circumventing the clean record law. 8. Electronic ballot boxes in operation 2022. Now in 2022, faced with the voting machine hoax in which we deposited the vote of confidence in our future, as proven by the hoax audit of technicians financed by the Liberal Party place, we ignored until the end of October that the results of the electoral software lottery it could be something different from what happened with the Queen of Cassava, when in 2022 like fools, according to the audit of the place, the Brazilian people were deceived. Finally, that structure of the farce of the electronic ballot boxes verified by the programmers, proving that unreliable data could not be audited in thousands of older boxes, prior to 2020, since they had the same number. This did not allow them to be distinguished or audited, as proven and documented by the Liberal Party and without any technical antithesis that there is no suitability of the system. It was shown that the Emperor's action served by requesting ballot boxes without printed receipt and without audit. In addition to the evidence presented corrupting this pseudo-democracy maintained by the empire in our still Brazil. Now the whole world already knows about the crime of these traitors of Brazilian democracy, while it still exists. However, this step towards the installation of the Empire of Zandaquistan and its dictatorship imposed a huge unconstitutional penalty over the place without technical arguments. So the party was restricted to remain silent this year, 2022. 9. Future under commands. As the future was, is and will be the result of our actions in the present. Many people who practice any kind of magic or mystical activities realize like anyone else in the world that there are many people seeking to learn what we have already experienced. This can be a form of income that, whatever our legal political future, we can manage our results. So even if we deal with angels, with saints, with demons, with jinn, with orishas, with gnomes, elves, fairies, undines, salamanders or any other being that brings us the desired objectives, we can immediately write something that we have already succeeded. 10. How to manage our survival. Faced with so many problems, I know that many people see magic and the occult in a romantic way. Whatever line they practice, but know that when practicing magic, sooner or later the bill comes, thus separating those who came in to play to see what happens, watching those people who work seriously with it, bearing the results to improve ourselves by correcting our own mistakes. Insane people incapable of recognizing their mistakes are therefore incapable of correcting themselves. So we learn to deal in real magic with our own mistakes and problems. But this does not imply learning to deal with the problems that others cause us, who already knows great. But here I try to bring an alternative that will depend exclusively on the personal effort of those who really practice magic, including divination methods, gnosis methods and healing therapies, for example. 11. How do we survive then? Many people who practice this or that activity have learned ways to guide people in the segment they operate in. However, the imminent crisis of this political situation already said will make the situation even worse than it was pre-2016, when we were in a huge economic crisis. What will that worry you when more desperate people will turn to the occult to solve their problems? The problem is that the money turnover in our economy will plummet in 2023 if the empire's fraud persists. And this old maxim that crisis in the economy means prosperity in the occult will stick. It may seem like something exclusive to the Brazilian people, but research the history of your country and you will notice that any crisis that comes from the legal side of a nation, fatally the economic effects fall on everyone, given the armor that the legal system creates around this power. Among the three, there is an effort by many Brazilian people, in fact, fighting to avoid this and end the possible Bolivarian disgrace. But it is still important for you to understand that there are countries abroad that will serve you as a resource to bring resources, even without you leaving Brazil. In this case, it's precaution rather than cure. Contrary to what shy people think about being incapable of writing books or ebooks, giving courses or selling Brazilian products abroad, there are many Brazilian people and companies even capable of helping you with that.
Many Brazilian companies need one way or another in the future to sell their products, and you can earn with that, without spending anything, or little amount beyond the percentage of sales destined to the producing companies. 12. Why would I bother to do this abroad, if I can do it in Brazil? When did I say you can't? But even better, why not do both at the same time? Do you need to wait for a crisis to take this action? Finally, aware that by focusing only on a single market, we lost a great opportunity to become popular in another. Let's learn from some construction companies that also went to work in the US and, hoping that the large working capital in that country would give them much success. It even did, during certain period, after their crisis in 2008, their branch in the US went bankrupt or almost went bankrupt and the headquarters in Brazil maintained the cash. This could happen the other way around in 2023, so it's better to be safe than sorry. 13. But what could I offer abroad if I don't speak English? It really seems difficult to explore the foreign market when only Portuguese is spoken, even because, suffice it to say that it is a Brazilian person or company that native Portuguese who live there boycott us immensely, so it is very difficult to base yourself in the language for an active business. However, there are passive businesses, where with translators you can adapt your content to create demand for your products and services abroad. As an example, creating crosswords, word searches, puzzles, Sudoku or other forms called low content. Coloring books are an option for you to add the content you work with. With these means of earning money and promoting your brand abroad, remember that the suggestion made here is for you to do this using Amazon's KDP. When it may even seem difficult at first, but when you learn, your possibilities of producing content for passive sale are almost limitless. So it's possible, if you have typing experience, for example, to make a Sudoku book in a week and export it abroad, without spending anything and without necessarily forcing yourself to keep any stock with you. ABD better, without having any obligation to monitor the sale and delivery process, which are the responsibility of the publisher itself, in addition to prints. The Amazon site specializes in being more of a platform than a huge company like they were before 2000. So they also allow you to sell even your handcrafted products in their stores, or if you want to produce items for merchandising your brand, such as mugs, t-shirts, gloves, hats or anything else. You can also use other, print-on-demand, companies to offer your products. But in this case it is a little more difficult because if you do it outside of the great Amazon.com, you will have the obligation to promote both your brand and your point of sale online, and this can cost you a good amount of advertising money. 14. But how can I think about expanding the consumer market for my products and or services if, in addition to not speaking English or another language, I don't have capital to invest? To produce as many options as I suggested, there are some online apps that also offer free resources to start your activities, such as the Canvas website. There are other paid ones that are also very good, such as Creative Fabric, but I recommend this one mainly when you start earning money and need to invest in something to make it easier and improve the technical details of your production, even because investing in Canvas itself multiplies the range of alternatives when you become a pro subscriber. But to understand how simple it is for you to start, a well-known author abroad called S. Rob has published more than 600 ebooks on Amazon alone, and this already guarantees you resources for a comfortable life. Let this serve as an inspiration for you as to how much of a bigger goal you can assume, without necessarily expecting to achieve that volume of production overnight. An important detail that he uses and that I need to instruct you is that the vast majority of his works are in the Amazon system called Kindle Unlimited. In their system, Amazon customers subscribe to a monthly fee, paying 19 Brazilian reals, 90 per month, and accumulating a maximum amount of 20 ebooks in their wallet. They just have to return an ebook within the promotion to get a new one unlimitedly, and the author earns approximately 1 cent for every page that the person who borrowed his or her ebook is read. It may seem like crumbs, but the earnings he has with more than 600 ebooks within this system amount to almost US $300, 00 a day. This is not counting what he earns with other publishers or with the services he provides. Does this inspire you too? 16. But is it different if you or anyone else self-publish? Yes and no. Yes, because many of the procedures need to be done by the author, but with the increase in digital communication this has become much easier than those old expensive and ineffective procedures of direct mail, distribution of folders and other investments in advertising that come back a maximum of 20% of the invested amount. Not to mention that, for your work to your work stay alive in the market, desired by the consumer public, the press will daily propose actions to revitalize a new market niche, or to revitalize a new public in a niche already worked on before. So, an advantage of little commented self-publishing that differentiates it from the traditional one, is the cheap and valuable interactivity of the author person with his target audience is infinitely more effective than making an advertisement that loses more and more credibility in the consumer market, such dubious falsehood in its usually content. The public does not forgive falsehoods, so when the author shows his face, by responding to the public, he develops a fantastic bond, serious and effective. This, in addition to being much cheaper, when you, as an author, sincerely solve the holes that happen to exist, in addition to acquiring ideas for your new works, you can correct those already published with much more agility and loyalty to the public, much more than spending zillions on advertisements. With foreign audiences it is no different. The only problem I didn't mention is that this will force you to get to know the culture of the market you're entering, to avoid cultural gaffes. As an example, when it looks like you've made friends with a person in some other country, sending a hug can be offensive. This and any other example of attitude needs to be analyzed as well, when exploring new markets. 15. But why did you make this video, if there are publishers in Brazil that could do all this work for you? Since the internet emerged, there has been an increasing migration of large volumes of trade in works to the internet, rather than just from the physical to the physical. Some publishers, such as Barnes and Nobles, previously stood out for the high quality of their printed products, but the neglect of digital content has greatly slowed down their evolution. Added to this, Barnes and Noble, among others, has always left a hole for authors who sought to develop products added to their works, causing Amazon to bite into this hole with total fury, and to develop more and more over time, and especially with the interactivity with your customers. Here in Brazil, unfortunately, the old model of publishers that, before 1995, was still exclusively fads that managed most opinion makers, and amateurism forced most of these publishers to close, when they did not adapt to digital content as well. On the other hand, there are still many consumer people trapped in the concept of fiction that was sown mainly by television and its surreal narratives, including Brazilian bookstores, even online, that insist on disclosing only works from this segment. But their evaluations decrease as they cease to exist to sow the old page of new ideas in the many bookstores that also close quickly. But focusing on Brazilian publishers, the vast majority are not concerned with developing the foreign market for their works, at most, giving a few cents for the cover price to the author. On the other hand, for people who venture into this segment, instead of paying measly cents for each book sold, they can choose the volume of their royalties for each work sold. This is true both if you choose to sell your printed works and if you want to sell the digital work. Not to mention that, until today, for you to have a work published by a Brazilian publisher, you either invest a lot of money to fill rooms with hundreds of your printed work for you to sell, or accept to earn less than 5% of the cover price for the publisher sponsor your work, forcing you to invest a lot of your time to publicize your work. 17. But what benefit do you get from this video, with these suggestions? As I said earlier, the literary fad is not exclusive to the 90s. Currently, there are still many publishers that seal their authors as excellent, magnificent, placing them on an altar where it seems that all the rest of authors are no good. This ideological altar is the same one that universities like the recently condemned FGV made the schemes with the University of an Emperor. Same emperor that forced the federal police to stop this investigation. Here in Brazil is a well thought out scheme that the majority of professors in their establishments require a list of works to be acquired for them, students at the beginning of the class year, by these same authors from this same publisher. And at least the annual sponsorship of works and authors would be guaranteed. Anyway, this academic segment has these tricks, boycotting those who acquire them for used bookstores. When the works have the same content, most of the time they change only the covers. Did you get the schematic? So this dissemination with teachers is the same scheme that many works of fiction were on the main shelves of bookstores, and publishers that did not invest in the dissemination of their works. These were stuffed in the back of the shelves, whenever is even possible to find them. However, as I said before, the contact between the public and authors online broke the pyramid that separated authors from readers, and that was wonderful for both parties. But at the same time that readers have contact with authors, contact between authors also began to occur with much more constancy. So in some cases these meetings are so wonderful, when they discuss an interesting subject and that both parties have a lot of affinity. The thing can be wonderful to persist for hours, and it immediately enables readers to become interested in the content and sooner or later acquire your works. Abroad this is very common, but in Brazil there are few initiatives. A fantastic example of this initiative in Brazil is the Chaos Magic people who, despite often having different methods and opinions on some subjects, still value their meetings very much, which, if they sold works derived from each meeting, would multiply the audience's interest so much, like them profits. But I cited this example because it is a very active one, while on the other hand examples like Tanya Gori with her coven and Marcia Frazao are open to contact with like-minded people to develop contact with their public directly. Videos bring a breadth of expectation to the audience, but the most important thing is the interaction with the audience. But in addition to these video resources on subjects related to the works and feedback to the public, debates on this or that subject of the occult are extremely valued. I know I'm a little off topic, but within ufology, a group of foreign authors discuss in their meetings the interview with countless people who are authors of other works that revitalize themes that, formerly molded in bookstores, such as archaeology. 18. But which authors stand out here in Brazil for these events to be held, bringing together authors of different themes, but with some relationship? Check it out. All I can say is that things work when both parties are committed to doing the best they can, but the most important thing is not who is the wildest person on this or that subject, that when he or she speaks it seems that he steps on mere mortals without the same emphasis, belittling those who have a different opinion. But mainly the new authors who can bring different views on what we knew or we believed before, and most importantly, disseminate these new works so that we can enrich what we have already worked or studied about, and thus knowing something of the content we seek to acquire such works. Good for everyone. The only thing missing is for people who have finished their works to get in touch with each other, especially when there may be related subjects, for an approach with different but complementary opinions. At the end of this video, there will be a very interesting release about Goétia, in the form of a complement similar to the ebooks I released about the collection Grimorium Verum Carpe Nicrum, with suggestions for use for the best possible use, but now also in English. I posted it to the publisher on Friday, November 25, 2022, and you can purchase this instructive gamebook probably on Amazon.com on Monday, November 28, 2022. I know I get a little out of line with Magick with the elements on the following events, but in order to develop people who are authors in Brazil, this video was necessary. Finally, I need to warn people who practice magic with Goétia demons that, in addition to offering some suggestions for using the names missing from the collection Grimoire Goétia, it is a very interesting game that you can always discreetly carry with you for your magical use, the Palavras Goétia, in Portuguese, that can be purchased at the Amazon virtual bookstore with the ASIN B0BMSRK2YG. Here in Brazil, I don't know why, but Amazon shows it but doesn't make it available yet, while in the US it's for US $8.99. It has 120 pages and activities for each of the 72 demons along with other pertinent information for your ritual use. That's it folks, I can't forget to let you know about new releases available and already available in ebooks on Amazon abroad. Don't ask me why, but their publisher, KDP, is not authorized to sell these works with low or no content in Brazil as low content, in the original English. But finally, anyone who can help me abroad by acquiring these ritual booklets. They are pocket-sized notebooks with blank or lined pages related to Goétia to keep writings exclusively on magic.
while at the same time a gateway to pathworking in the very cover. So they already offer resources for your activities in this pattern. Just look for Notebook and tesladimurbox, these pocketbooks, each on the cover with the sigil of one of the 72 sigils of the Demons of Goetia. So I thank you